Hello and welcome. My name is Andy, and today I would like to show you my way of painting a Merkava 4 tank. The model is from a Kickstarter by Jason Miller and was printed by me on a Mars 3 3D resin printer. For anyone who is interested, I will link where you can buy the files. The files come pre-supported, and I used exactly these files and it worked wonderfully for me. However, I didn't print the tank in the original scale of 50mm, but reduced it to 12mm scale or 1:144. The tank consists of 4 parts in total: the hull, the turret, and the 2 machine guns, a 50 cal and an FN Mac. I removed the supports as usual. I sanded down the traces of them and I glued the 2 machine guns on with superglue. I use IDF Sand Grey as the base color. Actually, the color of modern Israeli vehicles is a little greener, and I also tested several shades of green, but I always looked wrong on this small scale. Since the vehicles in photos are always somehow dusty, they appear in a grayish sand color, and that suits this color quite well. This surface primer can be applied with a brush, but then it needs 2 or 3 coats to cover. It's quicker with the airbrush. To be fair, I have to say that this surface primer, even when diluted well, tends to clog the airbrush. Next I paint the tracks and all the rubber parts of the wheels and skirts in black. This will all be toned down a bit later. Then I use black gray for the machine guns and the chains to protect against RPGs around the turret. In reality, these are mostly in camouflage colors, just like the smoke grenades, but here it is more important to me to have some contrast in these otherwise boringly painted vehicles. I also use the colors red for the tail lights, a brown for the stock of the FN Mac, and an olive drab for the ammunition boxes. The battalion markings on the gun are painted white. If you want, you can now highlight the edges with a light dry brushing. Personally, I often forego it because of such light base colors and the small scale. I like it clean and defined in 1:144. The next important step is to protect all the base colors with a layer of gloss varnish. Protect because I'm working with enamel washes next to make all the recesses darker. I have a very old pot with AK Brown for green vehicles and the same product from MIG. The only difference is that in my old bottle a lot of the solvent has already evaporated and the stuff comes out of the bottle quite viscous. But with a little white spirit it's all easy to work with. Maybe I'm just too stingy to throw it away. I apply this dark enamel wash to all the recesses. If something goes wrong, it's no problem at all. The advantage of enamel washes is that you can simply remove them where you don't need them. This would also be possible with oil paints, but these take much longer to dry. This is also the advantage over acrylic washes, which darken the base colors and can hardly be corrected afterwards. When the wash has dried, in cold winter weather I sometimes use a hairdryer to help, it's time to clean the model again. To do this, I first use an old cotton t-shirt. Thanks to the glossy varnish on the model, all washing residues on the raised surfaces can be easily removed. For smaller areas, I use a piece of kitchen paper and a cotton swab. All other residues can be removed with a brush soaked in white spirit. The whole thing takes a few minutes, but in my opinion it is worth the work. Although I have to admit that I don't take it too seriously, given the small scales. For me it's simply about the effect. Once that's done, I will do the same with AK Light Dust Deposit. This is also basically an enamel wash. I apply this to the entire chassis and the rubber parts of the skirts. However, I always dilute it with a little white spirit to get a washed out effect. If you apply this wash pure, the areas treated with it would look like they were painted sand colored. And I do not want that. Here too, the effects can be easily corrected or removed after drying if you don't like it. One of the most important points in my opinion to make these little tanks look interesting are markings. If you would like to find out more about the organization and tactical markings of units equipped with Merkava 4, you should check out battleorder.org. There is also a well-researched video about it on that channel. But how do we get the selected markings on our models? One option is to paint them with a fine brush. I do this for some things too, for example the little white brigade markings on the fenders. But I try to use decals for all other markings. This usually looks neater and, above all, it is faster and more even if you paint several vehicles at once. Since I unfortunately couldn't find any suitable commercial decals, I painted the required markings myself in MS Paint and printed them out on white decal paper using a laser printer. The disadvantage is that you then have to cut out the decals very precisely, otherwise you will see the white edge. I use Microset from Microscale to apply the decals. To do this, the area where the marking is to be applied is coated with it to increase adhesion. The precisely cut decals are soaked briefly and then applied to the model in the desired location. When you are in the right place, press it briefly with a paper towel to remove the excess water. By the way, my little tank here has a tactical market, Drab, for the deputy commander of a tank company. Next, I glue a few antennas to my Merkava. I use plastic bristles from my wife's kitchen broom. But don't worry, it's a cleaning broom and not the one she flies around with. After the superglue is dry, I shorten the antennas to the desired length and paint them. Since many of the antennas in Israeli vehicles are white, these are also painted that way on the model. To display tied down antennas, you just have to bend the broom bristles into the desired position. If necessary, I now correct small errors, for example in the paintwork, or I paint additional markings. If I'm happy with the vehicle, it gets a final treatment with Smart Varnish. I hope you enjoyed this video and you found something useful for you and your own models. Support Jason Miller if you need a Merkava or other models for 3D printing. This is my very first attempt at filming a painting tutorial. If you like it, I would be very happy about a like or a subscription. I realize that I still have a lot to learn about handling the camera. If you have any criticism, wishes or suggestions, I would be very happy to read them in the comments. Thank you very much and see you soon.